All right, welcome back everybody. So today we're going to be doing step-by-step rear main seal replacement and oil pan gasket replacement on my 85 Corvette. So this same procedure is going to be for like 85 and older small block Chevys with a two-piece rear main seal. So where I'm at with my 6-speed swap is I have everything out. So in order to go back together, you normally want to address the rear main seal issue. Even if you have an 86 and newer, once you normally have the clutch, the flywheel out, the rear main seal, if it's a one piece, it's right there. So typically it's a good maintenance procedure just to pull that out, replace it with a new one because you're there. In this case, you have to drop the oil pan to get to the two-piece rear main seal. So my oil pan already is just completely soaked, so it needs a new gasket anyway, so it's a perfect time to get that engine all sealed up before we go back together with a new flywheel and clutch. So we get started right now and drop the oil pan.
Okay, so my drain plug is a 19 millimeter or 3/4, and on the back of the pan here, you're gonna have two 13 millimeter nuts on the stud, and the rest of the bolts that are holding the pan in place are 10 millimeter, except to where you get where there's a bracket at, like right there and right there. They're 11 millimeter nuts, and once you take those off and move the bracket out of the way, there is the 10 millimeter nut underneath of that. All right, so I'm going to start with some of these 11 mils that are holding these little brackets in here. Okay, now I'm on the passenger side, taking off this knock sensor shield. So the nuts came off pretty good there, but the brackets on the driver's side were coming off like this right out of the pan. So you could see how there's the stud, a nut, the bracket, and then another nut. So like 3 of them just came all out just like that. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and take the rest of the bolts out of the pan here. I am gonna leave this one 13 millimeter nut back here, and I'm gonna leave one of the bolts up in the front just to keep it up here until I'm ready to take them all out together and then pull everything down. Okay, so I have all the bolts out on the sides, and I just have the one 13 millimeter nut on the back of it. So in the very front, it's the same as the rear. There's 2 studs and 2 13 millimeter nuts in the front. So I have a swivel on the end of my socket here just to get in here. So I'm gonna take these out now. All right, now I'm gonna take the last 13 out. Now I'm just gonna use a flathead just to slowly pry around here. So I am going to disconnect this coolant line here. So I was hoping there's going to be enough room for me just to slide the pan out with this just hanging down here, but there isn't. So I'm just going to start here, take this one hose clamp off. Okay, so a couple things have to come off just so we can get to the rear main seal. So I'm going to start by taking off this windage tray. This is a 5/8 bolt here holding the pump on, and then there are 9/16 nuts holding this tray up here. So we take all that off, take the pump off, and then we'll be able to get to the rear main cap. Try to just remember how this was when you pulled it out, because your distributor lines up right with that. So just when you push it back up in here, it'll clip right in there. You can move it if you have to, but if you can just kind of make a mental note of where this is, it'll be a lot easier when you go back with it. Okay, now we're going to take these 2 bolts out of the rear main cap here, and they're 5/8, so we're going to break them free with a breaker bar. Just gently rock this out like that. And now here you can kind of see, this is the bottom half of the rear main seal. Okay, so I have a Felpro 2-piece rear main here. So I just want to show you just a couple little things. So there is a lip side like this. This goes towards the inside of the crankcase, so towards the oil with that lip. And this is the back side of it, so that would face the flywheel. So you just got to keep that in mind when you're installing this. So these two pieces are the same. So you have one piece in the rear main cap like this. The other piece is up inside the block. So what we're gonna do is take this one, we'll peel right out, and we can put the new one in. But the one in the block, we're gonna take a small punch like this, and we're gonna just go up there and find a nice safe spot right there and just gently tap it so it goes out like this. And we're gonna pull it out. And we're gonna do the same thing when we install it. They give you this little installation tool, and this will go like this on the block. So as you work this in here, it doesn't gouge or score that, just because this is sharp, because it's a machine surface on the block, that you don't rip the top of the gasket. So we're gonna just take the old one out, and then I'll show you as we put this in. Okay, so I removed the old seal, and just make sure you clean out this channel in here really good with some brake cleaner. Make sure everything's out of there. And then we'll take our new seal here with the lip facing inwards and just sit that right in there like that. It's probably the easiest part of it. So now we'll just take the other one out and insert that one. Okay, so I'm underneath here with my punch, and I'm gonna start on one side, and I'm gonna stay away from the journal of the crank, and I'm gonna stay close to the block. I'm just gonna gently tap it, and it just slowly comes around like that. And then you just slide it out like this. And there it is. Okay, now I'm gonna feed the seal in, and I'm gonna use this as a guide, and just make sure you have the back side facing back here. So I'm just gonna start like this, tuck this down here and there, and just gently slide it through here. Now I did put a light coating of oil on the front and the back side of the seal, just to help it seat better. I'm just gently pushing it through. Once you get to the top, you can pull this out like that, and it's seated nice in there, and then we can put the main cap on next. Okay, so I'm going back up with the main cap here. So you want to just make sure you put oil or assembly lube on the journals and on the bearing itself too. So I'm going to just go and sit this up in here. On the bolts in. Okay, now I'm going to torque these down to 80 foot-pounds, but I'm first going to start with, I have them kind of snug, and then I'm going to do 40 each, and then I'll do 80 each. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put the oil pump back in, and when you buy that rear main seal kit, it comes with this oil shaft retainer here. So I popped the old one out, and I'm going to just pop this new one back in. They do sell different ones, these made out of metal, but I'm just going to use this since it's not really a high performance application. Okay, now I'm putting the oil pump back up in here. Make sure my shaft's lined up the way it was when I took it out. And you can just turn it just to line it up if you had to. And now we're going to tighten down the oil pump bolt to 65 foot-pounds. Okay, now I'm just going to clean up the surface of the pan here. Once I get this cleaned up, I'll go underneath the car and clean all that up too.
All right, after you like brake clean everything off, and there's still going to be some residual on here, you can use some light grit sandpaper, or like I'm using a red Scotch-Brite pad here, just to start cleaning up the surface a little bit and get all the rough stuff off. Okay, so I got the pan all cleaned up. What I'm going to do, since it's looking really ratty, a lot of the paint's chipping off and stuff like that, I'm going to just sand it down real quick and scuff it down, and then I'm going to just put a light coat of primer on it and then shoot it black again. All right, so I have my oil pan all painted there. Looks nice and fresh. And I ended up going with a one-piece Felpro gasket. The original one is a four-piece, which is the sides and the front and rear. And this kit actually comes with all the hardware. It's a little bit longer bolts to make up for the thickness, the difference there. And the washers, the hardware, and also these, they're called snap-ups. You put these up in the block and it holds the gasket and the oil pan in place while you run your hardware in. These may or may not work depending on how you have to fight your oil pan up underneath the cross member in the engine there. So they do give you that as an option. Okay, so I'm back underneath here, and now I'm going to clean up all the mating surface here on the block with some brake cleaner. And I got a razor blade to clean up any old gasket that's stuck on there. So get this real nice and clean. All right, so in order to get that oil pan up there with that gasket on the pan itself, I'm going to remove that coolant hard line that runs underneath the pan. So I'm on top of the passenger side engine area, and there's a hose clamp right down in there, and I'm going to loosen that, and then I'm going to just pull that pipe out of the way just so I can get the oil pan up there, because it's kind of hard to sneak it up there without separating the gasket from the pan. All right, now with this out of the way, I'll be able to get the oil pan up in here better to create a little bit more clearance. It was just kind of getting caught up in between the cross member and here. So this is a little tough to get out from that top hose area. It took me a little bit to kind of wiggle it out of the way, but it's kind of worth it because you'll have more clearance now. Okay, now I'm going to add a little RTV here, and the same in the front. Another thing too, I moved the crank around so these counterweights are up here. So when you're trying to sneak the oil pan in here, you have as much clearance as possible, especially on these C4s here. It's really tight right up in here. Okay, so I ended up putting the gasket up first, and then I ended up trimming those front little holders down in half just to get the pan up in there for clearance because they're normally too long. So now I'm going to slide the pan up there. All right, so now you can see it's being held up by those dowels. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. Get the gasket up first, then slide the pan on. Okay, so I have all the hardware ran in here. So the heads of these are 7/16 and the rear ones are 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna start in the center here, and I'm gonna go here, 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 and slowly work my way out and upwards. So I ended up putting 2 studs back in right here for the knock sensor shield, which goes there. And then I put the other one back up in there for this hard coolant pipe that goes underneath the oil pan. So I just wrapped it up. Take a look at that. So that's all done. All I have to do is just add the filter and just fill it up with oil. All right, so that's a wrap for today's video. As you can see, it's really not that big of a job to do. It is a little tricky getting the oil pan in there correctly, but that one-piece seal really helps out a lot. So I would definitely recommend doing that over the four-piece one. Four-piece one will work fine, but the one-piece one really makes it a lot easier to get it in place because of the clearance issue in there with the front cross member. It really kind of makes it a lot easier. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.